Hello, everybody. Welcome to Common Censored. I'm Lee Camp, joined by Eleanor Goldfield.
Hello, hello.
And this is the show where we talk censored stories and people, sensible solutions, and common ground movements to fight and build.
And sometimes other stuff.
The big week, lots of horrible shit going on, which is good for us. I like to see that. I'm like,
You're
oh,
so uplifting.
good. Tons to talk about because this world is burning down. We're going to get into some of the, obviously, horrible shit with the protesters, people getting shot and all that crap. But I wanted to start this week just talking for a moment about the Mpp Convention that happened this weekend, Movement for a People's Party. I thought it was, there's always going to be certain complaints about anything that includes a large number of people. But I thought it was pretty impressive that they put it all together. I think Nick Brandon did a great job. I watched some of the speeches, and I thought Eleanor Goldfield was a highlight.
I paid him to say that.
I thought she did great. If anyone can pass the word to her, if anyone happens to know her. I missed Chris Hedges, but you can watch all of it online. I saw some of Cornel West, some of Nina Turner. They were both brilliant, as always. I thought the clip by comedian Lee Camp was, a bit much. Like, okay, who the fuck do you think you are? But also, they seem to cut it off before the punchline, which tends to be important for some aspects of comedy.
You know what? Maybe what they were trying to do, Lee, is like give people just enough blue balls to be like, oh my god, I have to see the rest of that joke, and immediately go watch your special.
If we give away the punchline to this 1 2-minute bit, then no one will want to watch the full special, I'm sure. But overall, impressive to put it all together. And as a lot of people were saying, like it felt like all of the progressive ideas that are not allowed in the Democratic Party were being said within one, quote unquote convention, digital convention. All of the ideas that Joe Biden has, fought against and said, no, I don't stand for Medicare for all. No, I don't stand for accountable police or for, ending ICE or for all these military industrial complex being decreased by about 95%. No, I don't stand. Everything Joe Biden says he does not stand for seemed to be talked about in at the MPP.
Right.
Quote-unquote convention.
And I think, just like a little point here, because I've heard some mutterings since the convention this past Sunday. Basically, that it smacks of the purity tests that have become, unfortunately, very common on the left. Like, oh, well, it wasn't radical enough, or they didn't mention this, or there weren't this, and there wasn't that. And it's like, okay, look, I don't know if this is coming from a place of like bitterness or jealousy or what the fuck, but like, I think like you said, Lee, it's impressive that all of these people came together, even if we're not exactly in the same point on the spectrum, which I would think would be creepy anyway, if you just got a bunch of people together that are, like the same droids that agree with each other on everything. But I think it's impressive that these people came together. And again, like you said, mention the things that are unmentionable, like the unspeakable on corporate media and at the two-party system conventions. And I think that it's super important that we recognize that this convention is not like, oh, this is the answer to all of our problems, right? This is one of many events and actions and offerings that are going on that people are organizing around. So instead of looking at this thing like, oh, they tried to answer all of the questions and fix all the problems and they didn't, it's like, no, nobody can do that. No one event, no one instance can do that, right? But this was a powerful and very inspiring convention that I felt, even though I don't do particularly presidential, but I don't really do electoral politics anymore that much. But even so, I thought it was really powerful to have all of these people speak about their experiences, from all of these different backgrounds, from all of these different parts of the country. You had some elected officials, like you had the first elected drag queen to public office, who's awesome, maybe a girl, which makes me wish that I still lived in the Silver Lake neighborhood of Los Angeles.
She followed me on Twitter or something, and I didn't quite understand what the maybe a girl, Maebe a girl is, so it's a funny name.
Yeah, no, I love it. And there were Chase Iron Eyes was there, and Cornel West, and I think and then of course people that don't have the name recognition on the left that these people that I'm mentioning do, but are vital and important organizers. And so I think just the fact that these folks were coming together and sharing their organizing, what they've been doing, what they're fighting for, and why, I think that's incredibly powerful. So to have that all in one place, regardless of whether you choose to vote or whether you don't vote, just having these voices together, I think was super inspiring and powerful. So if you have complaints, just calm down and look at this what it is, which
is a building step.
Right. It's one of many offerings and one of many events and actions that are a powerful piece of our overall work as folks who are, anti-racist, anti-fascist, and want to build a more progressive future built on justice. Yeah,
and in that world of not having a purity test, because MPP is not running a presidential candidate, so they're not taking a stance on the presidential election portion of the election, and so there are some people like Cornel West, who I love 90% of what Cornel West does, who have said, oh, well, we got to hold our nose and vote for Biden to get the fascist out of the White House. And then there's others who say, Biden's the most evil villain in the world because he appears to be something he's not, or tries to pretend to be something he's not. Anyway, so you'll have both sides of that represented at MPP, which I think for this election is fine.
Yeah, and I think the kind of one of the highlights that I don't know if it was just, I didn't watch the whole thing because it was relatively late here in Sweden, but there were comments that I saw on Twitter about the whole vote shaming thing, and if somebody votes for Biden, I'm not going to say holy shit, what a fucking morbid and horrible human being you are. I think you're fucking wrong, and I think that you're going to be disappointed.
You don't mean wrong as in you must be voting. Everyone needs to vote for Trump.
No,
Just
but
to be clear.
that's my point. And I think that for those folks who choose to vote for Biden, you're going to be vehemently disappointed, and I would be willing to make a bet on that. But I think that the vote shaming is totally pointless. And to be honest, it's mostly coming from people who are going to vote for Biden and think that everybody who's not voting for Biden is, quote unquote, helping the Republican candidate, which I think is funny, because apparently running a diet fascist is not considered helping the Republican candidate, but refusing to vote for diet fascist is, which I think is funny. But that's a different tangent. I apologize.
Well, I want to kind of talk about a little bit of that tangent for a minute because of Biden's latest speech. But before I move to that, I just want to say people can still watch the full convention hosted by Nick Branna. You can look for it on YouTube, but it's also peoplesparty.org, or look up Movement for a People's Party on Twitter. You'll find it. Anyway, you could watch the convention if you wanted to. It is still up. And but yeah, so I want to talk about Biden's speech because he gave this speech was it yesterday, and I saw a few minutes of it. And I just want to say that for those who and I understand completely, and this is most of my family members are just dying to get Trump out of the White House because he is saying outwardly racist things so regularly, and he is responsible for the I'd say at least 100,000 of the coronavirus deaths, maybe more. So I get where they're coming from in that regard, but Biden gave this speech where if the Democrats lose, it will be because right now Biden and many of the Democrats are trying to out-Trump Trump. He gave this speech yesterday where he said, I am not against fracking. And he literally stopped and said, let me repeat that. I am not against fracking. Because Trump has said he is against fracking. And Biden wants you to know he's all for destroying the planet. He also, of course, did all of his, support for police stuff that he does. I'm against all violence and blah, blah, blah. And then he, what was the other trying to out-Trump thing? Anyway, he just goes down this list where it's like at each point he's trying to make you understand. And of course, he doesn't support Medicare for all or anything like that. He wants you to understand that he is not less right-wing than Trump on many of these issues. The main thing he stands for, which is why the ruling elite won him, is that it is a more gentlemanly, respectful, CEO-ship of the America Inc., of America, the corporation. He will give you one that sounds a little better. While he, runs to the right of Donald Trump on, and speaking to that, one other point I want to make is that if this, look, there's in a second I want to talk about election fraud because there's a million ways this election is going to be turned upside down, but it appears Trump is preparing for an attack on Venezuela. So this may be his kind of ace in the whole move, is that he's going to claim Venezuela is trying to, interrupt our vote here in America. He's then going to attack, like militarily or something, attack Venezuela and use that as this, the country needs to come together because we're at war with Venezuela. If that happens and he uses that during this election as his big, surprise, everyone get in my boat kind of thing, the Democrats have them fucking selves to blame because they have supported and endorsed this anti-Venezuela rhetoric for years and tried to crush Venezuela as much, if not more, than Donald Trump. And so they will have created the groundwork that needed to be there for Trump to pull off something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I said, the folks who do vote for Biden in November will be very disappointed with what happens because you are not going to notice a marked difference in really anything that matters to people on the ground, which is why people, a lot of grassroots organizers are saying that it's a point of privilege to say that you have to vote for Biden because it means that the only thing, like you mentioned, Lee, the only thing that you're really looking for is a president that you don't have to be embarrassed over, which is funny because Biden also can't finish a sentence without people going, I'm so what? But basically you just want to have a blue MAGA hat in the White House instead of a red one. The situation, as you noted in this speech that Biden gave, the realities on the ground are not going to change. There will be no universal health care in a time, following a global pandemic, at a time when people are literally dying because they can't access health care. There won't be a change in the militarization of the police. There won't be a change in the global, in the U.S. push for global hegemony and the strengthening of empire worldwide. There won't be a change in any of these things that affect people every day. So that's, the realities are not going to shift markedly. And you can see that even already based on how Democrats in Congress vote continuously. They continue to give Trump all the military powers, all the surveillance powers, all of that shit. And so it's really not going to change.
Yeah, they voted to increase, the military budget, the DHS as well. The amazing thing is the Democrats haven't even learned from Obama, like 2008, where they haven't even learned, let's say we're going to give everybody health care. Let's say we want to end America's endless wars. Biden is not saying those things, and as Obama did. Even though Obama let everybody down on those fronts, he said those things. And I think the reason the Democratic Party now, following Obama, isn't saying those things is because they're like, well, it turns out that when you say those things, eventually people want them. And so now they're not even saying that shit. Right. Oh, the other thing Biden said made a big point of saying is he goes, Trump keeps saying all these things about me. Look at me. You know my life. You know what I've done, what I've been through. Do I look like a socialist? I am not going to be pressured by socialists or leftists. Yeah, Biden, we were real worried that you were going to actually stand up for, taking care of people and in the richest country in the land. So one other topic on the election before we move on, which I thank you for putting up with all this.
Me or people listening?
No. I think the people listening enjoy this. I don't know about you.
I don't know about you, and I really don't fucking care.
I do care. Are you that miserable?
No, that's why I was confused as to why you were saying that, but you were apologizing to the people listening, which I think they'd like it too. Otherwise, they wouldn't still be listening.
Good. Thank you all for listening. I wanted to talk about, I'm actually having Greg Palast on Redacted, well, today, but it'll air Thursday. And there's been another small win in the ongoing fight against election fraud, although it seems to be a fight that only, me in my small comedy show way and Greg Palast in his way. There's like 6 people that are actually fighting for a legitimate election because the Democratic Party seems to have no interest in it. No. The Republican Party absolutely has no interest in it. And anyway, there's been a small win as of yesterday where a lawsuit stopped Indiana from using interstate crosscheck in this upcoming election. And that's not the first state that has been stopped from using interstate crosscheck mainly by Palast. This was a ACLU lawsuit, but they were using Palast's research. And, Palast has... Obviously, we've talked a lot about interstate crosscheck. I have on the show and stuff about how many millions of people it purges from the rolls. But beyond that, beyond just interstate crosscheck, I've talked before about how 1 out of 12 voters, not people, voters, regular voters, have been purged from the rolls in this coming election just by the false residency requirements. Send a postcard out, and if it doesn't come back, then we purge you. And so, on like every level, this election is not going to fit with what people, and I don't just mean presidential, obviously. There's a lot of people that are involved in these elections. There's the House, there's the Senate. And on every level, there's going to be a massive amount of purging, and the Democrats are hardly talking about it. The main discussion on the main Democrat side and the media and stuff is about the post office, which is a legit concern, but it's like, I've never even heard the media say the words interstate crosscheck. I've never heard them talk for a second about 1 out of 12 voters being purged, and it's basically because they want...
Sorry, I was just going to say real quick, can you just remind folks what interstate crosscheck is?
It's this hilarious system created by Republicans that basically is a list of millions of names, and if you match someone on that list, then they just purge you from the voter rolls. So the way this helps Republicans is that they put names that are more likely to be common names of people of color or mainly that, but that includes Asian and Hispanic. Latino and or Latinx, and so they, so it's things like Charles Brown and things like that, which tend to be names of African Americans, and then they purge Charles Browns from 20, 30 different states, and there's 50 people named Charles Brown voting in a single state, and all of them are purged. And it just wipes millions from the roll. Now, ideally, the way they sell it to states is they say they only purge them from the rolls if the Social Security matches, meaning this person has the same Social Security number in multiple states. But, of course, that never happens. It literally almost never happens. And so rather than do that, because then the whole system, they'd be like, we purged one voter of this last election. Instead, they just ignore the Social Security number and they just purge every Charles Brown. And it succeeded last time around. I mean, literally right now, Now, this actually is not a good selling point, but literally right now, Donald Trump would, Hillary Clinton would be president. Donald Trump would have lost if interstate crosscheck wasn't working because he only won by 10,000 votes in Michigan, and 500,000 people were purged with interstate crosscheck in Michigan last time around. So anyway, some of this stuff is still going on. Interstate crosscheck still operative in some states. Last time it was like 30 states. This time I don't know how many are left. But as I said, a lawsuit just cut Indiana from that list using this ridiculous system. But that's not the only vote purging that's going on. And the Democrats do not stand up against it because I think their main goal is just to keep people's faith in the election. Like, no matter what, let's just remember these elections are legit. And so the Democrats are nervous that Trump is going to say the election's not legit, which he's already claiming, because basically if he loses, it's not legit, and if he wins, it is legit. That's how he's going to play it. But again, the foundation for this, the void of this in this world of election fraud that has been created that allows for something like that to happen is because Democrats have for years refused to stand up against this kind of shit because they use it in their own primaries, and they feel like that undermining people's belief in the vote is a bad idea, because at the end of the day, as you and I discuss endlessly, the vote is about, I'd say 70%, less so on down ballot races, but 70% a ruse to get people to think that choosing between two corporate parties is somehow changing the world. And then we all relax and go home and say, yay, I voted. Right. So down ballot issues, not as much so.
Right. I think it's important to note that I think regardless of who quote unquote wins, because you can't have a real winner in a false election. And when I say false, I don't mean that there's some sneaky Russian in the gears. I mean, like, legit, we don't have...
Wait, you didn't know every computer voting machine has a guy named Evgeny inside it? Who's...
but like...
he eats every ballot he doesn't like.
Well, he's getting a lot of fiber. Legit, like, the U.S. does not have a democracy. There is no semblance of democratic elections that happen in our nation. So there can be no actual winner. But regardless, whoever claims victory or whoever is handed this bullshit on a silver platter will complain that there was some fuckery. The loser will complain that there was some fuckery. So either it's going to be the Russians did it, or it's going to be like, I don't know, the fucking socialists stole it or whatever. Like, no one is going to happily walk away and be like, cool, that was a peaceful transition of power and I'm going to go home. That's not what's going to happen. And so I think be ready for an onslaught of some of some vehement bullshittery, regardless of who quote unquote wins in November.
But so it's a last point on this. It's hilarious to watch them talk on all these shows, CNN, MSNBC, endlessly, Fox News, about these polls. They go on and on about the polls. Well, Biden's winning, and oh my goodness, Biden's winning in this state and that state, and look, he's up by 5 points in this state, but he's only up by 4 points in Pennsylvania. And you're like, those polls mean like literally nothing because those are people that think they're going to vote. Even if it's likely voters, those are people that think they're voting. Now, the people that think they're voting are about, a good 25% of them are wrong. They're not voting. They're going to go there that day. They're going to maybe get tired of standing in line. They're going to maybe be named Charles Brown. They're going to, maybe have a million reasons why their vote will not get counted. But those polls are horseshit, and yet every channel runs around pointing to these polls. Biden's actually doing, for one thing, they hilariously keep saying how well Biden's doing, but apparently he's doing worse than Hillary in a lot of these states. And his
Don't
enthusiasm.
Get bogged down by facts, Lee.
Now, this is one poll that may actually matter because this is not about who you're voting for, but the enthusiasm for, apparently enthusiastic vote for Joe Biden is at 9%. So
what exactly?
That's going to be.
How exactly do they measure that? Like, if the person comes while they're on the phone with them out of excitement because it's Biden, like, how do you actually measure that?
No. It means whether the person's on the phone right now, not at election day, right now, said they're enthusiastic for Biden.
No, I know,
on
but
the phone. But But no, my point is because enthusiastic people tend to actually be willing to stand in line and actually show up, whereas those who are like, meh, I guess Biden, they don't give a fuck. Like, are they going to skip work for that?
I'm always curious about the enthusiasm, though, because if you've ever had a phone call from like somebody taking these polls, are you ever enthusiastic? You just want to get the fuck off the phone with them. So I mean, there are plenty of reasons why these polls are bullshit, but I feel like that's another one because even if I'm super excited, even if they were calling me to ask me about chocolate, like, are you enthusiastic about chocolate? I am very enthusiastic about chocolate, but I don't want to talk to you. I want to get off the phone.
It reminds me of when I was 6 years old or something, and they at the Olympics they kept saying this guy won a gold medal in Seoul, or he won a bronze medal in Seoul, and at the age I was at, I didn't know Seoul was a place in South Korea, and so I kept thinking they meant like that. I kept thinking there was some kind of awards they gave out for like how well they did in their desire to win their soul.
Adorbs.
I was like, how do they know that?
How do you measure
How
that?
do they? Yeah, what kind of do they give them a survey or?
That's awesome. And what do those medals look like?
Well, you can't see them; it's in their soul. But. Yeah, how insulting. Well, your soul got a bronze.
I know.
Really? Only a bronze? Man. But that's the enthusiasm vote. Anyway, just know, folks, that no matter where you stand on all this, those polls are a flying load of horseshit, and all of our media acts like those polls are telling you who's going to win and who's going to lose. Okay, let's go on to mutual aid disaster relief.
Yeah, this is just a quick...
Yeah, also, before we finish up a little later, I have to get to the John Kerry Aku article because I find it hilarious. But
we're getting there. Can I have a second, please?
Oh, I wasn't trying to skip over anything. I was getting people excited. I was being the hype guy. You know, enthusiasm, remember?
You sound like the skip over guy.
I was trying to give this episode a gold medal in soul.
No. That was a gold medal in skip over your shit and let's talk about mine.
No, it was not.
That's how it felt.
Just for that, we're spending the next 2 hours on this mutual aid story.
Well, it's really only like a little update, so that's why I said, can I have a second?
Well, you may have to stretch it out a little.
That's what she said. So
God, that'd be the worst. Hey, honey, I'm pretty excited about this, but can you make that a little longer?
Oh my God, I saw my friend posted this joke, and he's a big guy, and he posted this joke, and he was like, it said, you know, girl after you've started making out or whatever goes, oh my God, you're so big, and guy goes, fuck you, I'm trying to lose weight. Okay, anyway, side note. So Mutual Aid Disaster Relief, which is a totally rad organization that's not only been doing badass work around the coronavirus issue, but is also, before COVID, did incredible work, particularly due to climate change, disasters that come due to climate change. And they have already deployed on the ground to assist folks who have been affected by Hurricane Laura. And there is an online form for folks who need disaster relief in Louisiana, places that have flooded, people that need help with supplies. And you can go to bit.ly/Hurricane Laura help. And please do feel free to print that out and post it up if you are in Louisiana, or let folks know. People might be wondering, well, how do people access that if they don't have Wi-Fi? There are people on the ground there, so if you know of people on the ground that do need assistance, just reach out to Mutual Aid Disaster Relief, and they will respond. They are awesome.
That's bit.ly/Hurricane Laura help.
Yes. And yeah, and more information. There's also links and little like zines and things like that you can pick up on Mutual Aid Disaster Relief's website that will help you as well. So just a little note for folks who are affected or know folks who are affected by the hurricane.
Well, this is an important point that yet again, there's a lot of people standing up for each other and trying to help each other, because not only do you have kind of a failed federal government response, which I think a lot of people are beginning to get used to, that our federal government, despite what it could be doing, seems to fail again and again at actually helping people, because there's not a lot of profit in that. So who gives a fuck for them, right? And so people are helping each other, and in Hurricane Laura, which was, upon touching shore, was one of the largest hurricanes in that area in 150 years, it got coverage for that day, but because it didn't have a death toll that, was anything near like Katrina or something, the mainstream media has largely moved on, even though there are still whole areas of Louisiana, maybe Texas as well, that are devastated. And our media is not talking about it.
Yeah, and let's not forget that even without climate change, the infrastructure in the United States is absolute shit. We've got tens of thousands of bridges that are ready to collapse just under the weight of gravity, not even extreme weather. So
under the weight of our own corruption.
Right, under the weight of our own failings. So it's really important that we recognize, and also, and I posted about this too, that people will often say shit like, "Well, you should have left when there was," because there was an evacuation order before the hurricane came. And I think that we have to recognize too that evacuating is very often a privilege. That means that you have not only the physical ability to leave, but you also have the monetary and economic ability to get out of town. You have a car, you have enough money to buy gas, you have, you have things that will allow you to make that move. But not everybody does. Particularly in Louisiana is one of the poorest states in the nation. So the idea that everyone is like, oh yeah, let me just jump in my Tesla and drive off into the sunset, like that's not the reality for these folks. So it's super important that instead of trying to shame people for staying or shame people for not having access to the appropriate resources that they need, that we instead work on assisting these people in means of solidarity and not charity. So that's another thing to think about. And please, 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 whatever you do not fucking give any money to the Red Cross or any of these big fucking NGOs. Give money to people like Mutual Aid Disaster Relief, because they are legit on the ground helping people rebuild, helping people get mold out of their homes and shit like that. Red Cross doesn't do dick diddly. They just take your money and they go, have big lobster dinners. So do not give money to the Red Cross, please.
And even when the Red Cross, what little they do are involved in, the amount of money they fucking have is like crazy. Yeah. So it's not like they're not on their hands and knees with their gloves out, like their torn gloves, being like, "Can we please have a nickel, sir?"
No, certainly not.
Some quick notes. I've been doing a lot of Moment of Clarity videos on a topic. I'm trying to do almost one every weekday, so 4 to 5 a week, and on new topics and different news stories. And those are all at leecamp.com. You can catch them every single day, so just check back at leecamp.com if you want to know the news of the day. Also, check out Eleanor's movie at hardroadofhope.com. It has so many, official selections that it doesn't even fit on the poster anymore. You got to flip the poster over and see the rest on the back for all the laurels it has won. But check that out, hardroadofhope.com. Oh, and wasn't there some kind of discount?
No longer, unfortunately.
It's over.
It was just for August, but it may come again, so keep your eyes peeled. But it is available on a sliding scale, starting at $5. So if you got $5, then you can get the movie.
Absolutely. My comedy special is at leecampamerican.com. But most importantly, I hope you're a member of the show. and by the way, I'm not finishing up. We have more stories coming up in a second. But I hope you're a member of the show. Please go to patreon.com/commoncensored to become a member. As you know, you can do as little as $1. And you'll get extra content each week, and you'll be supporting the show because we have no ads, we have nothing funding this show outside of you guys. So if you want to see it continue, please go to patreon.com/commoncensored. And I'll just add that my book is now 20% off. Woo. If you go to leecampbook.com and type in the coupon code, the initials of the title, BPAPL, that will get you 20% off any of the formats. So, we're talking, once you get the 20% off, it's like $6 or $7 for the book or something. So very cheap. And let's keep going here. Let's talk about these protests going on in Portland and Kenosha, and protesters have been killed in both those cities by fucking psychotic white supremacists who are apparently being supported by the president and by Fox News and by others.
Well, and by law enforcement. I saw a hilarious in a very morbid way, but this is just another one of those examples where corporate media is like, I don't know, maybe 150 years behind. But there was there was an article, I can't remember exactly which outlet, but it said, white supremacists have infiltrated law enforcement. And I was like, so I guess you were not here when the slave patrols started and that became the police. You were unaware that was where the police came from.
Well, see, that's the difference between like active and maybe outright is a better term. Outright white supremacy versus the white supremacy of the system. The white supremacy of the system is fine in most people's view and is how the system works. It is meant to lock up more poor people, more people of color in general, and lock them up for longer sentences, et cetera, et cetera. And that is the white supremacy of the system that is considered great and allowable and perfect for white people who consider themselves not racist. That is a wonderful little system there that locks up more people than any other country in the world. However, the outright white supremacy, I think, is what they're talking about, which, if you do that system and then wear a white power t-shirt or a white power tattoo, now you've stepped over the line that is allowable for the suburban whites to support.
Well, that's an interesting point, because just to kind of take a quick detour here, it's kind of like, I can't remember if it was Margaret Kimberly, but I believe I read it on Black Agenda Report, which is a great resource if folks are not aware. But it basically read that, everyone's fine with the racism of Barack Obama, but not with the racism of Donald Trump. And the point was that, under Obama, black and brown and basically BIPOC folks in general had a harder time. Obama continued to force the gap in income inequality, the gap in access to health care and education and all of these things. But it was okay because not only is he black, but he also was, this eloquent and said all the right things at the right times kind of president. But the overt racism of Donald Trump is not okay. Only covert racism is okay. There are so many. I mean, the examples of this are they're fucking too many. It would take the rest of my life to name them. But I just wanted to kind of give some updates and a little bit of a comparison here. So, for instance, Jacob Blake, who is the man who was shot 7 times for trying to break up a fight. He was shot 7 times in the back by a police officer who is still at large. And he is now paralyzed because of it, but phenomenally, he survived. And until recently, he was handcuffed to his hospital bed, which he was never charged with anything. So just the idea that he would be handcuffed to a bed at all is fucking absurd.
Yeah, because a guy who's just been shot 7 times in the back, let me tell you, he's going to sprint from the hospital and go on the lam, even though his legs don't work any longer, in order to avoid the non-charges he has.
Yeah, and this is reminiscent. When I read that, it definitely rang. Alarm bells rang of what happened to Huey P. Newton, the co-founder of the Black Panther Party, years ago, obviously. But he was shot by law enforcement and then taken to the hospital, but handcuffed to his bed in such a way that doctors had to demand that he be unhandcuffed because they couldn't actually take care of him. They handcuffed him in such a way that he was stretching open the wounds in his stomach, and they couldn't actually give him proper care. They basically just wanted to torture him after they had already shot him, and then they put him on trial for shooting them. It was again like a classic example of we are not only going to stick our boot on the back of this black man, but we are going to torture him once he's there. And meanwhile, the piece of shit 17-year-old who is responsible for killing 2 people, shooting 3 in Kenosha, is in juvenile detention. And for folks who don't know, he was also allowed to walk away from the people that he shot, even though the place was swarming with police. They later went and got him from his home.
Right, and he'd been the police had been supporting him throughout the evening.
Right.
Like this is
Giving him water.
This is a kid. Yeah, there's a kid walking around with an assault rifle on his chest, acting like he's looking for people to shoot, protesters to shoot, and the cops are giving him water and high-fiving him and shit.
Right. And as a comparison there, so he's in juvenile detention, awaiting trial. By comparison, Khalif Browder, who was a 16-year-old, went to Rikers, which is possibly one of the most notorious prisons in the United States. He went to Rikers for 3.5 years at the age of 16 for stealing a backpack that he didn't actually fucking steal. So
he's the... Wait, is he... Oh, yeah, he's the one who was never actually given a trial or anything. I don't know if he was ever even charged, and then ultimately... Once he got released, he killed himself. Is that the same? Is that the same one I'm thinking of?
I don't know. I know the one that you're talking about.
This is different. Okay.
I don't know. Actually, yeah, it is. Sorry, you're right. That is the same. So he ultimately committed suicide because of the horrors that he had experienced at Rikers. Basically, torture.
That's the same one.
And he didn't even do what he had been accused of doing, and he was 16 when he went to Rikers. So
and even if he had done it, even if he had stolen a backpack, you can't just keep a 16-year-old at Rikers without charges for years.
Well, and let's just say, like, he stole a fucking backpack, and this other piece of shit, whose name I'm not even going to say because he doesn't warrant the recognition, but he killed 2 fucking people. And he shot 3. He was walking around with an assault rifle, which he was not legally allowed to be doing, around a bunch of cops that were buddy-buddy with him. So I'm bringing this up just because it's important that we recognize, like, this isn't, what like an awful example. And that's so unusual, or that's so un-American, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is very American, and I think that we can't. Just like I oftentimes use this example, like if you go to the doctor and the doctor says you have cancer, and then you're like, I disagree, I'm leaving, and you live like you don't have cancer. You are going to die sooner, and it's going to be more painful. If we don't acknowledge that the body politic of the United States was born sick, and it continues to be sick and sicker and more twisted, then we cannot actually address that sickness. We have to be very honest with ourselves and with each other as we organize and as we look at elections for the farce that they are. We have to be very, very honest and accept that the situation is what it is. And that doesn't mean that we have to live totally depressed and joyless lives. quite the opposite. I think true joy is to be found in the fight. It is to be found in building joyful and just alternatives to the shit show that is our reality as Americans in the 21st century. But I think it's very important that we look at these comparisons and understand how BIPOC, that's Black, Indigenous, and people of color, are treated in the United States, how they have always been treated, how they have meant to been treated since the writing of the Declaration of Independence. You know, it's very important that we recognize that and not turn away from it.
Absolutely, and I think you're right. There is, I know people obviously tune in and hear us talking about the most extreme news, but we have a lot of joy in this fight. This fight is, I'm having a blast. I bring streamers to every protest. So.
You know, I know that you are more of a fan of like the muted color look, like the black jeans and the black shirt, but I would love to see you in a rainbow dress. I'm just putting that out there. Just marinate with that for a minute and just, you know.
Well, I've noticed that the kids these days, those under 30, you know, those little children, they have gotten much more into the kind of like neon colors. I was noticing that because I don't actually watch any of these award shows, but I'll see on the sidebar of something else I'm reading that it's like the best dressed at the VMAs or whatever. And, you know, Machine Gun Kelly is in all pink, and, you know, Jaden Smith is in fucking neon orange and shit. So apparently the kids these days, they're into the pinks.
I mean,
which I get it. You know, when the world is looking very crimson red and soot colored, then you might want some to liven it up a bit.
Or, you know, you could even just start with like a nice pink lip stain. I think that would look smashing.
Lip stain. That sounds like I was just drinking someone's blood or something, doesn't it? Is that really what it's called, lip stain?
That's a name, yeah, lip stain.
Okay, I feel like that sounds like an insult to someone. You know, like annoyed by. All right, shut the fuck up, lip stain. So last thing before we head on over to patreon.com/commoncensored, I wanted to talk about John Kiriakou, who I fucking love this. So John Kiriakou he just went to see his family, I think, you know, grandparents or something in Greece, and apparently he's used to this. So, as many of you know, John Kiriakou, he co-hosts the show Loud and Clear, but he also is a famed whistleblower. He revealed that the U.S. was torturing people, and he's the only person connected to because he's former CIA, he's the only person connected to the torture program who was imprisoned for the torture program, not for partaking in it, but for revealing it to the American people. Mm-hmm. So he has a felony charge on his record because he was convicted of, you know, being a traitor or whatever they fucking tried to call him for revealing the truth about our war crimes. And so when he flies, he's now accustomed to the fact that TSA is like their little computer goes, traitor, traitor, felon, traitor, traitor, beep, 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 please kick in the groin, traitor, coming through. So he's used to this, and on his way back into America, he's let's see, he's talking about flying back to America, and as the ICE officer at JFK says, "Please come with me, sir. We're gonna have to talk to you. You're gonna have to talk to one of my colleagues," and Kiriakou says, "And I'm not an idiot. I knew that meant let the harassment begin." So he's placed in a secondary inspection. He sits there for 25 minutes. Eventually, another two more ICE agents come in, and they say, "Have you been arrested for a crime?" And I responded, "You know I have been. Otherwise, you wouldn't have asked me these stupid questions, which literally have nothing whatsoever to do with my travel today."
Right.
And the agents looked at each other like, "Oh, we've got a problem here." And they say, "What was the nature of your crime?"
Oh, Jesus.
And And he says, Karyaku's response was, I'm going to tell you guys exactly the same thing that I tell your friends at Dulles when they harass me. I'm represented by counsel. I don't talk to cops. You have no right to detain me. I'm a journalist, and I'm going to write about this incident using your true names. And you have no legal right to keep me from entering my own country.
Burn.
And after a moment, the agents looked at each other and said, you're free to go.
Love.
Isn't that incredible?
He's a total badass.
Apparently, unless you're actively committing a crime at that moment, the cops, the ICE agents at airport security have no right to continue to hold you. So they can annoy you. They can hold you for a certain amount of time. I think maybe the maximum, if they think you may be creating a crime, is like 24 hours or something. But in John Karyaku's case, they have nothing on him except that he once had committed a crime that he'd already been to prison for.
Right.
So they have no right to hold you. They just are hoping that they can harass you enough that you'll maybe reveal something, that you might say something that allows them to hold you longer. Anyway, his response is fucking beautiful.
Well, and that's also a good little note for folks to add to know your rights trainings or things like that. Something that just gets repeated over and over that in the know your rights trainings that I've seen is just keep saying that you are not going to speak to anyone. You want a lawyer. And just keep saying it ad nauseum, even though it might be awkward. Just keep saying it and don't give them anything. So yeah, no, that's brilliant, and I'm glad to hear that he's all right.
Right, and there are other circumstances where it's more complicated, like if the FBI or cops come to your door and say, that they're doing that because often they suspect some sort of quote-unquote crime, or they're trying to get you to create a crime by talking to them, such as lying to them or something. So in those cases, they can hold you for longer, but still, you should not talk to them. You should just say, I want a lawyer. And the other difference would be if you're arriving at an airport and you are not a citizen of America, then there's a lot more they can do to you and a lot of more harsher ways they can harass you. But in this case, Karyaku knew he's an American citizen. He knew he was not suspected of any current crime. And so, therefore, let me fucking leave.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant.
Okay, folks, we're headed over to patreon.com/commoncensored. If you want to support the show, which has no ads, no sponsors outside of you guys, then please head on over there, and we'll do an extra 10 to 15 minutes for you. And, thanks a lot. Keep fighting.
Act out.